we're gonna kind of rip through two different things this morning. Both of them are open source projects. One that you're probably, or at least a lot of you are familiar with, and another one that you're probably not. And Liz and I are going to share the stage. We've had an opportunity to work with each other over the last 2.5 years on a big project, which we're going to share with you, which I think you'll find really exciting in a number of ways. But the first thing I wanted to do, how many of you have used Pachyderm before? Oh, wow. And I think that's a great number. That's like beats the membership number from yesterday. So we've been working hard on a new version of Pachyderm, and it's still in its infancy in that there aren't new templates that look drastically different, but the entire back end of Pachyderm, as well as there's a whole new set of HTML5 templates that make it so that Pachyderm is now compatible with the iPad. So I want to just take a couple minutes, not that much time, but just to give you a quick overview of it. So this is, as you know, Pachyderm was in Flash before. So Pachyderm was not compatible with the iPad. But now we have Pachyderm running on the iPad. And it has basically all the same functionality that it had when it was in Flash. Now the nice thing about this is it's now published simultaneously in Flash. There's basically, I mean, the thing that was genius about the way Pachyderm was designed in the first place is it just outputs all the content in XML. So it's basically just text files that describe how the content, what the content is and how it's broken up. And so to make the HTML5 templates, basically we designed just templates in HTML5 that took those same XML files and just displayed them in HTML5 rather than filling in fields in Flash. When you publish, you can, if you're running on a non-HTML5 compatible browser, then if it is Flash compatible, your program will be in Flash. But if you load it on an iPad, it will sense that you're on a non-Flash compatible browser, and it will display in HTML5. So let me just flip over to the computer for a second. I want to just touch on a few of the things that are new in Pachyderm. We already talked about the fact that it's HTML5 compliant. One of the things that used to drive people crazy about the Flash version was you couldn't link to an individual screen in a Pachyderm presentation. In other words, you couldn't send somebody from another website to a particular part of a Pachyderm presentation. That's no longer true. And even if you come in, the back door to a Pachyderm presentation, you can get all the way back to the front again. So you're not locked away. The improved media playback controls are that now you actually have a time slider when you're watching video, so that you can actually see how long the video is. You can go forward and backward and pause. You can go full screen video, which actually works really well. As I said before, it's still got Flash, and it's got a new Flash. We actually improved the Flash a little along the way too, so the Flash video player is also improved. One of the things, if you guys know, I know this is there's a lot of the stuff that's a little bit on the geeky side, but if any of you know how cascading style sheets at all, CSS, the new HTML5 templates are all just designed with CSS, which means that if you know CSS, you can completely redesign the output of Pachyderm by just modifying the CSS of the individual HTML5 templates, which is a lot. First of all, it doesn't cost money like having to buy Flash, and second of all, there's a lot more people in the world nowadays that know CSS than know Flash and use Flash on a day-to-day basis. And one of the things that's really nice is there's an expand and collapse in the editing, and I'll see if I can show you that real quick here. So if you notice, for those of you who've used Pachyderm before, this area here used to be this really long scrolling thing that used to drive people crazy. So now it's all compressed, and you can just click on any one of these, and it expands, and you can go and add content to it. And then when you're done working on it, you can just close it. And so you don't have to scroll at all. It used to be all this scrolling and jumping around. It used to drive people crazy. So you can open all of these if you want to do it the old way, but it allows you to do it that way. So you can see now on this, this is a good example of how when you publish, you have an option up here to say if you want to output in Flash or you want to output in HTML. The Media Manager, which is the thing that used to drive me the most crazy because I would do huge presentations, is finally the way, a lot closer to the way that I always wanted it to be, which is you can just click on My Media and just find all the media that you uploaded, or click on All Media and just look at everything that everybody has out there. It used to be you always had to like tag your stuff so you could find your own stuff amongst this huge group of materials. You also have the ability to look at just different media. So if you're just looking for a video file, you can just click on Movies and find all your video files. They used to all just be in one big pile, and your only way to find anything was to use the search field. From an administrative standpoint, it's a much more stable application. It's actually 200% smaller than it used to be, which is the opposite of the way software usually goes. But we've gone through and rewritten the code so that the whole installed application on the server, which is available on SourceForge, is 200% smaller than it used to be, and is just rock solid. It runs on Apache now and Tomcat, which Apache's web servers are the ones that you can find everywhere. For the $5 a month hosting, you can install it on just an Apache server. If you install it, now we have a lot more administrative functions. In the past, you really had no control over if you wanted to go delete presentations that if you wanted to really administrate the Pachyderm server, you didn't have the ability to really manage your users and manage the presentations that all the users created. You didn't really have that ability before. But now you can go in, you can go in and just see all the presentations that everybody has done. This is if you're an administrator, and you can go clean stuff up. And the other thing that's nice about it is that in the past, the server used to just get filled with all these temporary files, and it automatically cleans all those out. I know this is all stuff that Rachel knows well because she was administrating. We get a lot of feedback from NMC and Rachel as to how to make this a better tool. So all in all, it's really right now it's basically a new platform, and there's a lot of opportunities to start really customizing the templates and making it into something new, and that's beyond it being just a new version of its old self. Now we can really start to customize the templates with the CSS. At this point, we really wanted to just make sure we replicated a better version with the contemporary tools. But we're going to change channels completely now and look at a more contemporary open source project, one that's just started from the ground up, which is, thing that's so interesting about Pachyderm. It's been around for 10 plus years now, so it's a real legacy project that keeps getting upgraded. This one is more from the ground up, and it's something that Liz and I just finished working on. So I'm gonna talk about kind of where this project came from and how it came into being. I was the contracted project manager, so I'll talk a little bit about that, and then Liz will get to show you what we produced, which is some really amazing stuff. So I'm gonna go through this relatively quickly. So the program is called Launchpad, and it wasn't called Launchpad when we started, but what we had a donor at the museum who really wanted to take her family's collection, which is a big part of the European decorative arts collection, and bring it to life. She felt like this was just a thoroughfare. Her gallery was a thoroughfare through the museum. It wasn't really utilized that much by people. People would walk past these incredibly beautiful pieces of European decorative arts, and she really wanted to bring them to life the way she felt that they needed to be brought to life. So they wanted to engage visitors, and she really wanted to get to these stories that underlie these objects. And then at another level, the museum really wanted to develop some kind of tool where they could do this with all their objects, or a great number of them. And they wanted it to be open source so that at least attributes of what they did, if not the software itself, could be shared with the greater community, somewhat like Pachyderm. So the real challenge was we were working with objects like this. And they are in some ways beautiful, but they're also in some ways kind of dead and kind of complicated. I mean, there's a whole room full of things like this, and we really needed to figure out how to bring them to life. We also really wanted to get people to look really closely at objects and really kind of deconstruct them. A lot of these objects are really complex, and it's part of the reason that it's hard to take them in, is because they are so complex. So from a project management standpoint, this is really how we broke it down. Now, Liz and I have given a similar presentation before, and I know most of you are from small museums, so we've taken out all the stuff about working with big teams, but I think there's a lot here that even if you're in a small group, you can still learn from this. So the process that we went through was developing requirements, forming teams, developing the content itself in a workflow for producing this. I should say that the donor said, I want a minimum of 50 objects to be completely, the stories of 50 objects to be completely told, which is, if you know anything about producing rich, comprehensive content, 50 objects is a lot to cover. And then we did testing, and we really worked on building the infrastructure because these are permanently installed in the galleries. And Liz can talk to you a little bit about why we permanently installed them. So when we started out on defining what the application was, and the first thing we did was select objects. And so we worked, and this is the process that I've gone through with many museums that I work with, but it's to actually figure out what are the best objects to tell the stories about. So we went through, there's probably 200 or 300 objects in those galleries, and went through and picked the 50 that we thought, well, we thought and the curator thought would be a good place to start. And this list changed over time, but then we actually had these target objects to work with. And then from there, we went and the curatorial department went through and just dug through all their files and found everything they had. And this is stuff that generally is, this is not the education files. This is conservation records, you know, all sorts of research that's been done on the objects in the past or in the curatorial records. And we got that out for all 50 of the objects. And then we went through this process, this object analysis process. And I think this is something that you can kind of hopefully take something away from, which is to actually look at each one of these objects. And we did this as a group in a meeting where we had a big, you know, we projected each one of these up on the screen. And then we went through and we talked about all the different ways that we could potentially look at these objects. And we were looking at them both from just a visual standpoint, but we were also looking at them for what we knew in all those curatorial records. So we were saying, you know, there's these different things to examine, and there's these different comparisons we can make, and there's these different processes that we want to show. And each one of these, this is using the tool OmniGraffle. Each one of these, if you clicked on it, there's a little text. It's basically like a Post-it note. So we went through and we're basically tagging, and then we were writing descriptions of what are we going to contextualize. So this only provides a top level. This basically provides the tagging layer. But underneath each one of these labels is a whole little description of what the many different things we could do. So this is really the core of starting to think about how to make this an interactive multimedia experience. From there, we started to look at what existing tools we could use because we didn't really know what we were going to do right off the bat. So we looked at Pachyderm, which we just talked about, because we wanted something that we wanted something the staff could log in and add content to anytime, very much like Pachyderm. We also looked at the online scholarly catalog project. That is another area where the Art Institute of Chicago has been a real leader. And Liz can talk to you probably outside of this more about that project, but it's basically interactive. It's a project which is producing catalogs electronically, somewhat like iBook Author, except much more scholarly and in-depth than that. That is another open source tool that they've been working with. And then we also looked at TAP, which is another open source tool produced by the Indianapolis Museum of Art that is a open source mobile authoring tool. And we, in the end, decided that this would be kind of the foundation for our project. From there, we did wireframes, again using OmniGraffle, but we kind of sketched out, and in this case, wireframes typically don't have this much visual information, but we decided to include this because we were working a lot with the curatorial department, and we really wanted them to, it was we really needed they were a key player in this project from beginning to end. They did a lot of the content development, and we really wanted them to understand how, when we talked about, well, the main image will be here, we needed to kind of show them what we meant. Often wireframes just have a box there. But we actually threw a lot of media in here just to help them understand what we were doing. And then we formed these teams. We had basically a management team, a core content team, which is the people that developed all the content. This is all the text, research and text content. We had the video and audio and visual production people. We had the software development people, and then we had an infrastructure team that looked at how do we get Wi-Fi in the galleries? How do we make sure the galleries are wired? How do we make sure the lighting's going to work? How are these things maintained? How are they physically installed so they're safe and they meet ADA requirements? And the core content team, which is the one that did most of the heavy lifting throughout the whole project, was made up of people from the digital area, which you could say is a mixture of IT and collections, the curatorial area, folks from education, and then in the end, we kind of in hindsight, we decided we should have involved from the beginning publications and editorial. In the end, we ended up with 190 different stories and 26 videos and 4 animations, and Liz will show you some of this. 500 comparative illustrations, which is, if you remember what I was talking about with the iPad yesterday, and I was talking about using Flickr to actually find stuff. This is the kind of work where you got 500 images you need to find that's good for. And license. And license, yes, which took a tremendous amount of time to license 500 objects. We're still working on it, actually, even though the project's live. The other thing that we did was we did this analysis where we looked at to try to find balance, because there's some objects that are so rich that it would be easy just to talk about them forever. And there's other objects that are really a stretch to try to tell a lot of stories about. So what we did was we did this mapping of all 50 objects, and we wanted to make sure that there was a pretty good balance, that we didn't have all the videos in 2 places, or we didn't have all the 360 image rotations or image manipulations in one place. And so we kept laying it out like this and visualizing the distribution of rich media, so we had a really good sense of that we were going to have an equal distribution, because it's really hard to visualize that with 50 objects unless you do something like this. And then the other thing that the curator and the donor said was, we want to have this in 24 locations in the gallery, which was like crazy to want to have 24 pieces of installed media. I mean, crazy, just unusual that a museum would be into that. So we ended up doing all these different mappings, looking at both traffic flow, where we had power, and things like that, to make sure that our distribution of where these were going to be installed, and if they were going to be installed in benches or they were going to be installed in stanchions, how they were going to be installed. Then we did testing, which was really important. We did testing with the visitors. We did testing just, for ADA requirements. We did testing to make sure that we didn't have a lot of reflection from the lighting. This is a mock-up of a bench. This is the blueprint of the bench, and the bench actually has a box. The real bench has a box in the middle of it, but the box is made of wood. It's kind of like a magazine rack where the iPads are in the middle. They're in this frame that we were talking about yesterday, so that people can't steal them. And so we mock it up and make sure that it's going to work. And this is basically, well, there it is in the end, how it's installed. And this is, there's a lot of them that are installed on pedestals like this. And some of the pedestals, depending on where they're installed, the iPad rotates 90 degrees so that you have access to it. And with that, since I've told you everything but shown you the cool stuff that's in it, I'm going to hand it over to Liz.
Well, I do want to say that great that it's great when we have opportunities to work with other people that can come in, because something like this is a huge project, and we've also we're really always rethinking workflows and how we're working with other departments and how my department, digital information access. So it was great to have Scott come in and still have it be a very internal project where the internal people are doing the work and working together, so that we learn to work with each other in different ways, so that when we move on from this project. It's something that people at our museum now we're used to working in a certain way. And actually, some of these team structures that we started having some issues in some other projects, and it was like, well, hey, you know, that actually, we resolved that by having this certain team and getting people together and having different, so based on this, kind of like learning from one project into the next and applying what can work so that we just start, because I think a big thing of what we're all facing with these projects is that, you know, there's a education component, curatorial components, technology, is that collaboration is just so important. So how do we get there and learn to work together that way? So just taking opportunities like this and learning from them and then like reapplying those ideas. So yeah, I'm going to actually go into the program. I just wanted to kind of say this. So when I'm clicking on this, I'm actually going into the authoring environment. So you see this is my list of tours. And so the cool thing there is that I'm going to show you one thing, but because we made this so that it's replicable, I can make another tour and publish another tour. So I'm going to tell the story by actually going into it. So when someone walks up to an iPad, and the really cool part is that we designed this preview tool in here, which is nice because that means that the curatorial department, as they're working on content, can see what it's going to look like in the iPad. Because so much of what we're working on now, the animations, you know, that we use in interactions are in our iPads is so much part of the story. So you have to see how it kind of is. So when someone walks up in the gallery, this will be focused on what's near them. So, you know, this is installed. You saw that it's installed on a stanchion or on a bench. What we wanted to do is that when someone walks up to that object, that this is focused on, you know, that mirror plateau or is near the rabbit there. So that when I click on this, and this is all set in the settings, I see something that's right in front of me, because we know that people, through the testing, we saw that people walked up and whatever they saw on the iPad, they would kind of look around for. And that's exactly what we want, right? We want people to be interested in the object. So if they're looking at the screen and then looking for the object. So we have this focused directly on what's in front of them. And then they still can get to everything. So I'm scrolling back and forth. So I would just use my finger to do this. To see what else is available. And so we kind of organize these by galleries so that you know, we could set it in different places. There's also a way that we can get to it by that's a little more you know, all over the place. Some people really like this. I like mine orderly, surprisingly, but very surprisingly. So there's also this view, and this view also scrolls back and forth and has all 50 objects. We can't see it here because this is preview, but there's a button there that has in this gallery, so that, and that's actually what comes up right away, so that someone can filter down to the things that are around them so that they can get a little closer look, or they can look at everything. Within this one, so I'm going to go into an object first, but then I'll come out. So if I click on something here, you know, my rabbit's always one of my favorites, actually. If I click on something there, it starts to go into the record. Before I dig in, though, I want to kind of show that there's, that you'll also see on this screen some things that you wonder, I wonder where that's in the gallery. Or, you know, why is there an Apple laptop there? Or something good. Why is there a sheep there? I mean, when we did initial testing, we had some things off with the architecture, and we actually realized that people were looking for things like ostriches in the galleries. They'd look for it because there was like a real connection. But we fixed that problem. So if someone clicks, no one's looking for ostriches anymore. So if you want to hear why they were doing that, what was wrong with the architecture, I would love to talk about that. But so if they click on this, they'll be like, oh, why is there a sheep? That immediately brings it together with the artwork and kind of tries to show what's the surprising connection. Why is there a sheep? And I think you know, with the shapes and everything here. So we have ostriches because there's an ostrich cup. So really trying to make some people are going to go in because they see something. Some people are going to hopefully see something that surprises them. So, so I'm going to go back to the home screen here and go back to my orderly view because that's where I like it. And dig into an object a little bit. So once I get into here, I'm actually going to go into this, what you saw a screenshot before, and you saw a fellow kind of looking closely at it, which is what we like. So just to kind of show you what we did. So there's a certain amount of things that we have for each object. So there's a little teaser here, a little intro text that hopefully drives them directly to this red button here, because this just to tease them to come in. And of course, that beautiful image. We did all new imagery for all these objects, which is really great. The first thing it drops you on is, we saw this with iBook Author yesterday, is kind of a hotspot tour. And this is really an important thing, because when we walked through the galleries with the curator, she'd point out different things, and it would be just an exciting story. So there's a lot of stories that have to do with these, as Scott mentioned, these complex objects. So this kind of hotspot. So if I go in, we have this kind of blog post kind of thing on the side here. So you can kind of click around and find out about it. And it scrolls up, so we can have images in here. I think it's maybe in the preview, the way I'm using it, it's not. So it scrolls up and down. I can get a better, closer look by zooming back out again. And we wanted a flexibility here so that we could see this in different states. So here, it's where it's opened up, because we can get in here. And this is really an interesting feat of imaging as well, that they could get in here and actually find out what these images are and what they stand for and that kind of thing. So the guided tour is a pretty exciting thing. And then
one of the things that the curators really want to do is have people open stuff. And we talked, and they really wanted it so that you could touch the screen and open doors and things like that. But because we wanted to make it so it was universally, so that we didn't have to make custom animations for everything, and that actually those processes could take place for any object, this is the interface that we ended up coming up with, where you have these multiple views.
Right, and this can have images in the kind of blog post view there. It could have videos in there. We could have, you know, just illustrations. So we also just wanted to be really flexible. So, but not every story about the object is about something, a physical location. You know, if you think of, oh, we want to talk about the maker, you know, you don't want to just arbitrarily hang a little hotspot on there. So we also wanted a flexible interface to tell stories that are more general about the context of the object. And these also might be stories that are shared amongst objects. So if we do something about silversmithing, you know, we might want to share that with any object that's related to. So for this, we could, I'm going to show one here. And this is what's really been exciting too, is just that, you know, putting into the galleries video and sound. I'm going to actually play this. This is a 3D animation, a fellow who went to the School of the Art Institute. Oh, sound. Yes, sound's very important. Thank you. So this is not the actual object. This is a 3D model of the object. When we did this imaging, there were parts and pieces that we found in here, tools that hadn't been seen by the curator who's worked there for 20 years. So they open things up, and then they can, I think this drawer here, we're able to, in the modeling of this, put the pieces back in there, and then in other parts of the story talk about why those pieces are there. This sound just plays in the gallery, and I tell you, that's one of the, well, I'm excited about several different aspects of this, but it's so wonderful to walk into the galleries, and first of all, this means that someone found it, found the video, yay! But to walk into the gallery and hear this music playing, it just gives it a much more lively tone, and I think that, you know, what the donor was going for is creating this relationship, you know, upping the emotional impact of what you're doing when you're seeing there. And I think that having live sound just does that so much. So, but in that, and I'm playing the sound while I'm talking because I love it. In that, we made some decisions as well, because it was something that we actually talked about for a good few months. Should we, shouldn't we? Is in the European Decorative Arts Galleries, what we did is kind of imposed a little rule on ourselves that we only have music and then art making sounds, which we'll hear some in a second. So no voiceover. So voiceover is a lot more difficult to deal with because you have to actually be able to hear the person. And so here, if it's noisy in the gallery and they play this, you're still going to get an essence of the music, or if you don't hear every chord, it's okay. But if that was a voiceover, also voiceover is just much less atmospheric. I mean, this, when I hear this in the galleries, it's amazing. It's just and there are a couple different music pieces. We don't have it on we didn't use music on every piece, but then for the art making, when you hear the pot come down on the wheel, you know, it's not loud. It's not even, maybe the person wouldn't necessarily realize, oh, there's sound here, but it's still adding that and kind of using more senses to connect people to the stories. So in our other galleries, we have installed this in other galleries. We've used voiceover, and I'm really curious to see how each tests. We haven't been able to see that yet. So, okay, I'm going to go and I'm actually going to click on this guy right here next to it, because I think that when we, again with the media, that was a 3D fly-through. So think about that you're standing right in front of the object that's in a huge vitrine. You can't open it up. It's obvious it has doors, so you can see that, and the music plays. So that's one way. We did 5 or 6 of those. And then one of the other really exciting things, we worked with artists and artisans to reproduce pieces of the artwork, and this has also been really exciting because it feels like contemporary, having contemporary artists work and redo it in the way that it would have been done at the time. So I'm gonna go in there. It's a related story here. So this is one of them. This is Patrick Edwards, who works out of San Diego. And he doesn't have one power tool in his whole studio, and he still does French marquetry. He studied this in France. This is tortoise and brass here. Sorry I can't full screen on the preview. But the video team went out, and the curator went out, and he came to the Art Institute, looked at the works, and talked about, this is kind of the art-making noises I was talking about. And then he took with high-res photography, actually remade it. So I think this has also been a real hit with visitors, that, it's engaging. You watch it, and it's sitting right in front of the actual work. So you're watching him put this together while you're standing in front of this Boule cabinet. And I won't play this whole video, but the sawing noise is just so great. And just to think that someone... And on top of this, as I mentioned before, I think every project should be capacity building, right? So, for the video team to learn to go out there, for us to have experience working with artists at this level, and that they're working with our collection has been really amazing as well. Let me tell you, anyone that does French marquetry like it was done in the day is an interesting character. We can say the same thing about the silversmithing fellow. I mean, you're talking to people who think about the world in a very different way. So it's an infusion into the museum of different personalities, contemporary practices, using old methods. So I just think that, yeah. So, and so this is the glue, and he's going to put it together. It's like tiling, but it's just amazing. And there are a few different levels of artists that we worked with. So Patrick Edwards is he's doing something at a level that only one person in the United States is doing. Silversmith, Ubaldo Vitali, who we worked with and made 4 videos with, and we're going to do a documentary-style video as well. He was the MacArthur, he had the MacArthur Genius Grant Fellow last year, so, but then we also worked with artists that were working in Chicago, so, you know, people that had come from the School of the Art Institute for porcelain and that kind of thing. Just gonna. One thing that we think about a lot too is that when we make videos, how can we repurpose them? I think that's another thing we're all thinking about, is that this is great standing in front of the object, but it also stands on its own. So can we make our media modular so it can be reused in lots of different places? Almost at the grand finale here. They did these in cooking show fashion, so, you know, he's in San Diego, so he did different methods and had just different versions of this so that the video team only had to be out there for a week, even though this took months.
The other really great thing about these artist recreations is the museum now has all these steps in the process, as well as the final pieces, as educational tools to, you know, make displays out of or do hands-ons with. So.
Yeah, so we have that now, so that's really great. Silversmithing? I can show the silversmithing. Just a little bit of the. This is the other kind of great. That one's pushing it. That one's 3:30. We definitely gave ourselves we really wanted to shoot for like 1:30, but these more, I'm just going to go ahead and start playing this. I'm going to go page 2, actually. Actually, page 1's nice. So we gave ourselves a time limit of 1:30, and then when they were putting these together, most of them, they could not abide by that at all. And but then, so that last one was 3:30. I think it's okay. It's engaging enough, but in the gallery, it's a little long. This one is the silversmith, Ubaldo Vitali, who just also a character, as you can tell, just as he's smiling while sizzling wax here. He's just like this big thinker who just came in and bowled over the whole museum, and what a charmer. So when we were working with them, the smallest that the video team and the curator could get it down to is 11 minutes. It's like, well, that's not going to work because 11 minutes in the gallery is an eternity. And actually, there was something wrong with it. It wasn't quite right because it's a lot of complexity. Like if you're going to hit that much complexity, you almost need it to be half an hour, not 11 minutes. And the video team were great. They kind of like hunkered down, sat with our curator for 6 hours, and this is in the last week before we went live, and turned it into 4 videos. And actually, it was just, not only was it just about time, it was just so much better, because now I could say, this is the part that you know, deals with the forming of the wax. The next part is this. So it actually made it a lot more understandable in these modular pieces. So this one is still, how long is this one? This one's probably still, so this is 1:35. So this is good. And he's actually like forming the wax here by hand, using, like melting it. And then this is a lost wax process. So then he makes a mold around this, and then he melts the wax, and then he makes it hollow. And so it's super complex. So we just, because it's a multi-page story, we could say, okay, this is 4 pages of one story. And actually, I'll just go ahead and go in there.
So he ends up making an identical copy.
Yeah.
Of.
Yeah, I think we should have the end at the.
And it's big.
Oh, this is actually the they made the base here. So, so that's kind of what we're looking at. There are also 360s of things, but that doesn't work so well in preview, so I can't bring that up. Anything that I'm missing that, no, I'm missing a kind of video.
Well, we did the object manipulations.
Right, yes. So we also did a lot of things with if we wanted to show something, we would, for example, with the, let me see if I can find it here. These little guys. Pretty sure it's on, oh, there we go, the teapot here. So there were a lot of stories on things. So when we say image manipulation, there were a lot of stories on things that that go around something. So we wanted to also just use Photoshop to kind of get closer. I think it's here, right?
I think it's in stories.
Some things move. Ah, found it. I thought it was here. Oh, maybe it's lower. Sorry. So anyway, that's kind of what we're looking at, and I think that, well, I should just show that I focused on the video stories, but these, oh, that doesn't look so good. Still working out the kinks and things. So a lot of the stories are image-based. So, but we put a requirement on the authors that there's not a page without an image or video, because it's all about the media and kind of getting that across. Okay, I'm gonna kind of wrap up my section. I know I'm focusing on the video, but on one last kind of video, there were kind of three buckets that the videos kind of fell into. They were the artists kind of recreating something, the 3D kind of fly through and manipulation, which is really cool. And then we also did some where we tried to bring the objects to life. Now you remember this clock here that we kind of shout out as something that's pretty hard for a contemporary person to stop them in their tracks. So I think I'm going to show you here something that really changed my kind of view of this. So this is what we call the Lotz clock. Oh, sorry. It really bothers you, doesn't it?
You can't read the subtitles.
Right. So this here, we got really close views, and what we did is that, you know, a lot of this it's really intricate. It's got it's really gold, it's really intricate, so it's hard to understand, but this wouldn't have been seen under natural light. It's not until 30 seconds. It wouldn't have been seen in natural light, so we put it under candlelight and worked with conservation to hear what it sounded like 300 years ago. Seeing the gears and everything here. And isn't that gorgeous? Did you see that in the clock? I mean, it really makes you look at it differently. It's just gorgeous, and it really requires you to go, like I see that at my desk, and I want to run up there and say, what? And this is the behind the scenes, so it's like a little music box, so to kind of give an idea of how they did it in this time. This is the closer here. So isn't that amazing? So I think that's really what we wanted to do. We wanted to give these things life, and I think that in many ways, especially with the videos and getting access and getting these sounds to kind of waft through the galleries, has just been amazing. So.
You want to just say where this project's going now?
Oh yes, you know, I'm used to having a PowerPoint in front of me to organize, but so because this is something that we were able to make tours and everything, we're installing our new ancient Roman, Byzantine, and Greek galleries at the same time, which maybe it could have been a little more spread out, because that was a little hard to do. So we they wanted a technology component. So 2 weeks after going live with this, we went live with another 16 iPads in the ancient Roman and Byzantine galleries, also with 16 to 19 videos and just tons of stories. And because we built this in kind of a flexible way, well, hopefully a very flexible way. Let me see if I can get up there. Because we built it in a flexible way, we could, you know, the way that we organize things for European decorative arts, iPad might be covering, one iPad might be covering 5 different objects. Well, they wanted an iPad to deal with one object, so it was attached to the vitrine. So we're able to like reorganize things a lot to use the same system, no changes, make it look somewhat the same, but customize it a little, and to give more stories in that way. So 16 in there, and now we're shopping for our new clients of who we're going to work with next. And I think that we're really looking at collections that kind of have these background stories that people don't know how to look at them, or they need access to more information on how to feel them, how to experience them, how to get connection to them.